Welcome to Speaking Cinema series movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live from our underground bunker in Hollywood, California. Well stocked with Twinkies and beans, specifically green beans.
You ever dip Twinkies in the beans?
No.
It's gross.
No. I don't mess around with that kind of shit.
I have no surprises for you. It's disgusting.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr. Listen to us Jibber Jabber on Stitcher, SoundCloud, and iTunes. I am your host, survival enthusiast, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, wearing his signature paranoid scowl and tinfoil hat, Kevin.
They're watching us. They're watching us.
This week on the Jibber Jabber, much has come in many forms. 2016's 10 Cloverfield Lane, part of our continuing series looking at currently released films. Taking a small break from the summer of 1982. Summer. That's okay. 10 Cloverfield Lane, starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Gallagher Jr., and John Goodman.
The great John Goodman.
Directed by Dan Trachtenberg, written by Josh Campbell, Matthew Sturkton, and Damien Chazelle of Whiplash fame. Produced by J.J. Abrams' company Bad Robot, distribution Paramount. One of the rare films they're going to put out this year.
Really? They got a blank docket this year?
They don't put out movies that much anymore. If you look at their schedule, you look at Sony, Fox, Disney, the major players, even Lionsgate puts out a couple movies a year. They don't put out too many movies a year anymore.
Man, come on, Paramount.
Rumors that they want to get sold.
Oh, boy.
When, it's like, who would want to buy them? It's like probably like an Amazon or a Netflix. That's a whole nother podcast. Back to Cloverfield. In typical J.J. Abrams fashion, plot details are being kept under wraps. Imagine that, Kev.
Imagine that. We don't know what this thing's about.
He has described this film as a quote-unquote blood relative to 2008's found footage monster movie, Cloverfield. Not a direct sequel.
Well, we will find out what that means.
10 Cloverfield Lane was announced 2 months prior to its release with a surprise trailer in front of Michael Bay's 13 Hours. I think most people really found out about it in front of the Super Bowl. Or during the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Or on the internet, as I did.
Yeah.
Because I sure as hell didn't go see 13 Hours.
The film, you and a lot of people. The film was originally codenamed Valencia, but the trailer was the first acknowledged of a Cloverfield blood relative movie.
Yeah, I had heard rumors of a secret Valencia project, and most of those things, I wait till they actually announce it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You want that? Give me that release date, then we'll talk.
Yep.
This is director Dan Trachtenberg's first feature film, known for his short Portal No Escape, which is an adaptation of the popular video game Portal, made into a live-action short. Pretty good. You've seen it?
I've seen it. Very clever use of the Portal aesthetic.
Right, yeah.
And concept.
And really, really nailed that, I think, very well.
Yep.
Popular on YouTube, as these things tend to be. Got him noticed, as these things tend to do. Similar to another alumni of this podcast, Josh Trank.
Yep, also found on YouTube.
As of this recording, go watch 10 Cloverfield Lane in theaters. If you're listening to this podcast at a later date, check it out on iTunes, I guess.
Watch it on your holographic eye projection, if you're that far in the future.
Kev, have you heard of this movie?
Have heard of it. Literally, there's a billboard with a poster right outside the window of my desk at my office.
Interesting. Yeah. Here in LA, this movie is peppered all over the town.
Yes,
just
it is.
On any construction site, there's stuff put. There's just a bunch of. Also, is that stuff legally put up or illegally put up?
It depends. Yeah, I think the company owns those slats and can sell the space.
Okay.
But then you'll see the ones that say post no bills if they don't want their shit fucked up.
Interesting.
And then people put pictures like Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I heard the first time I heard about this movie in its true incarnation was I was watching the Super Bowl and I saw I was half watching the Super Bowl and I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, holy shit, you know what I mean?
They're making a Cloverfield movie? Another one?
What do you think about the marketing so far? Shocking?
Shocking that they would do it so close to its release date.
Yeah, this is
and how do they keep it under wraps?
Well, we'll get to that in 1 second, but this is like when Beyonce dropped that album all of a sudden, You know what I mean? It's like, this is the cinematic equivalent of that. It's like a major sequel to a movie, big production. It's like out of nowhere 2 months. It's like, this is the closest thing to that you ever get.
I'm going to be cooler and say when, like, Radiohead dropped their...
Well, you know, album. That's because you're cooler than me, Kev, but, Are you tired of J.J. Abrams doing this kind of secrecy kind of thing? Or, you know... It worked well for The Force Awakens.
It totally worked with Force Awakens. I mean...
Except for if you got that Lego catalog and gave away a lot of...
Oh, boy. There are lots of character names in that Lego catalog. And a few key sequences.
But this movie, not huge on the toy market, so I think, you know, that not spoilers that way.
I mean, I'm fine with it.
What's that? You're fine with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I have no problem with JJ kind of keeping a lock and key on things. It's like, we should discover this in the movie. And, he's the master just giving us just enough to get us intrigued by it. Because if you're too vague, it's like, well, I don't know what this thing is. But he's giving us just enough little kernels to make it interesting. So
I agree with you about that. And, you know, I think as movie enthusiasts, that's our default. Because it takes very little for us to be motivated to go see a movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, people criticize, you know, so like the marketing with, like, say, like a Batman vs. Superman, where they've pretty much given away the whole movie in the trailers.
Guess what? Galactus shows up. Guess what?
Guess what? Doomsday's in it.
Yeah,
but
Doomsday.
That's not, those trailers are not for us, right? Those trailers are for the audience that maybe is debating if they want to go to the movies.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is a movie that cost $250 million that needs as much exposure and people going to it as possible.
Whereas this is a movie based on its secrecy, and I think for us as movie enthusiasts, that's enough. That's what makes us want to go to movies, right?
Yeah.
Just like what is that? I want to experience that. But are you a fan of the original Cloverfield?
I didn't like it at first. Again, my screed against found footage when I was a piss and vinegar filled teenager. But I did randomly watch it like on TV not too long ago, and it's a pretty good film. I think it does have some really good suspense moments. Does interesting stuff with the found footage formula, and overall I think it's pretty good. Is it perfect? No, but it's a pretty damn good monster movie.
I don't really like the original Cloverfield. I feel like they fail in the way that all stupid horror movies fail, which is they have unlikable characters.
True.
And I think that is just like, you cannot do that. Like, that's just like,
yeah.
Come on. Like, you have one job, make these people charming. And it's like, they're young. They're willing to get naked easily. Like, you could make them charming. You know what I mean? You can make them fun to be around. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. They go skinny dipping. It's not an accident. Just make you fucking be like, hey, these guys are all right.
Yep.
Not a huge fan of the original Cloverfield, which you think would work against my interest in me seeing this one. But I feel like if you're going to do a sequel, I don't want to see, you know, spoiler alert for Cloverfield, everyone dies at the end. So it's not like you have this, you know, a sequel with the same shitty characters. It's like another part of that Cloverfield world, which I think that's an interesting concept, and that's good enough to get me to go. And the trailer, what they show in the trailer, which is John Goodman is a survivalist, and he has quote unquote rescued this girl who presumably crashed her car on his property or something, and he has taken her into his bomb shelter, fallout shelter, and he won't let her leave. And the guy that she's with basically came to the door, and he begged to be let in to escape whatever's out there.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that first trailer is like, we're not making just some other rehash of Cloverfield. This is a totally different story.
Right. So I think that helps sell it to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And also, I gotta think it's a Cloverfield monster and monsters in that universe. I think that's the best part of that movie, right? So you're keeping only the good part of that movie.
Exactly.
The world is under attack from a gigantic monster. And its little offspring baby things.
Yep.
Okay. And then now we'll tell another story.
Yep. I'm getting a vibe from the recent posters they released. I'm getting kind of a Frankenstein vibe from this, though. Because it's showing a house with, like, really crazy light emanating from it. And so I'm wondering if that's going to kind of play into it a little bit.
I don't think so.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. I mean, we'll
obviously,
see.
we know nothing.
I
but
mean,
I'm getting a total Frankenstein vibe from this
I don't see how that fits into the Cloverfield world. But anything is possible, right?
Anything's
possible.
possible.
You know, it's
monsters come in many
aliens.
forms.
You know, who knows? You know what I mean? Tagline. J.J. Abrams, taking a huge gamble on completely unknown director. What do you know about director Dan Trachtenberg? And what do you think about this?
He made a short film called Portal, as we talked about, and that's all I know.
Okay, so Dan Trachtenberg used to be, I guess, at this point, a commercial director, directing advertisements, hosted a web show called The Totally Rad Show, which I was a huge fucking fan of. And did you ever listen to Slash Filmcast?
No.
Okay, never mind. But one of the guys from this show is now on Slash Filmcast.
Okay.
So I was a huge fan of them on that show, and they would talk about video games and board games and TV shows and movies and things like that. So I had been following his career ever since that show ended, right? So he was going to be on the Why the Last Man movie, but before that fell apart, and then he's going to do this movie called Valencia, and it was like there wasn't a lot of details about it, but you thought that because of his connection to the internet stuff, there'd be, once that movie came out, there'd be a lot of like interviews with him and things of that nature. Didn't happen because it was secretly this Cloverfield sequel, and J.J. Abrams is going to be secret. But yeah, so I was totally looking forward to Valencia, sight unseen, and then Valencia turned out to be
this.
Right. And you were asked earlier, how do you keep this movie secret, right? This is how you do it. You have J.J. Abrams, you got an unknown director, and you have a self-contained movie. So it's not like we're shooting a Cloverfield movie in, fucking Times Square. They just shot it all on a soundstage in, like, Toronto.
Yeah.
So no one knows what this is, you know what I mean? And presumably, the way the movie is shot, it's just this really tense post-apocalyptic movie, and then the visual effects adds in the monster at the end.
Or with, not a whole lot of locations, so you can keep it self-contained, and...
Yeah.
I mean,
Because it's hard for them to keep the fucking Spider-Man movie self-contained when Peter Parker is doing backflips in Times Square.
Exactly.
And,
and you're shutting down massive streets, and...
Yeah, and Jamie Foxx looks like garbage, and everyone sees it. You know what I mean? So what do you think Blood Relative means for this movie?
Could be in the same world, just like a totally different story, but maybe this world's affected by the events of Cloverfield. But
I agree with that.
Is not directly tied to it.
Right.
So I think that's good if it's not directly tied to it. Just put it, monster attacking New York, that's big news. That's going to affect a lot of different people.
Right.
In a lot of different ways.
Right.
So.
I agree with that. And I think that's the only take that you could really sum up from what we've learned about this so far. But we don't know. We know what this movie's about generally. What do you want from it? And by that I mean, for me personally, I don't want to wait this whole movie for them to get out of the room. Right? Yeah. I want to spend some time in this world.
Exactly. We better get out of that room. Yeah, if the climax of that movie is her leaving, then we're all fucked. So.
Yeah, I want the first act break to be her getting out of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if we're gonna get that. Might be midway.
Might be halfway.
Worst case scenario, that's like the little thing at the like 5 minutes to go, she gets out of the room, and then we, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So hopefully, but I'm hoping that the secrecy thing works out for us in that all the footage that we see is like from the first half an hour of the movie.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And just like a really interesting payoff. Maybe not necessarily a super shocking payoff, but something like that no monster movie's really done.
Yeah, I don't need some crazy twist. She can get in the world and the world just looks like a fucking gigantic monster just rolled over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need any crazy like, oh no, it's secretly aliens, or oh no, it's secretly zombies. I don't need any fucking Shyamalan kind of shit. All I want is, just a cohesive execution of that.
Or if, like, she finds some guy who's, like, an opposite of John Goodman's character. If maybe she thought he was the worst guy, but maybe she finds somebody else that's, like, even a darker version of that. So,
right.
Who's also been twisted by this world, this blood relative world of Cloverfield.
Yep. So... that's it. That's all we got. We're going all in on this movie, sight unseen. Got some expectations though, so
we got
it's not like we're.
I think they're trying to build expectations.
They're trying to build expectation. We're giving them expectation, so we're not coming in open hearted. We'll see how that affects us in the end.
Bring it on, JJ.
Here we go. And we're back. Kev, did you see this movie with me, and when did we see it?
We saw it. Yes, we did see it together.
Indeed.
We went to a members-only screening at the Culver City ArcLight Wednesday, 2 days before it came out at 7:30. Although it was closer to 7:55.
Yes, we did have
We're having some projector issues.
Yeah. We did receive a free ticket for our troubles,
We did.
which I feel like was justified because it wasn't like here's some trailers or here's like some it was like we don't know what's happening, and a mood of panic of like, hey, we don't know what's going on, we'll update you in 10 minutes kind of.
No, it didn't get too restless.
Didn't really have a negative effect on the screening.
Yeah.
I will say our crowd was a weird crowd. It seemed like
Kinda was.
a lot of like work friends.
Yeah,
And the guys...
I think it was the one person has the ArcLight membership, buys 5 tickets, because you can buy as many as you want, as long as the person buying it's a member.
And then the people next to us were like, oh, we're right behind you, other people that we know. So it's like they were sitting in like 3 rows going up, so it's like 4 seats, 4 seats, and 4 seats. So I feel like it was a couple of different groups who like bought tickets, but they couldn't buy. We bought the tickets next to them, so they had to buy tickets in front of them.
Yeah.
And not everyone was on the same page. Also, the guy sitting next to me was kind of a douchebag. We're going to get into 1 minute. But
yeah, that is how we saw it.
Overall thoughts. You want to get into your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I'll start. This is an interesting film. It is... I mean, you can't really get any expectations for it because I feel the trailer isn't really setting too many expectations about what it is, what it's going to be. It's just little snippets about it. And this is really just a captivity drama with a little bit of sci-fi thrown in at the end.
Well, I'd say it is like subgenre wise, it is like kidnapped /
paranoid thriller.
I think genre wise, it's a paranoid thriller with horror elements, with sci-fi elements, with thriller elements, right? And then you're right, it is a kidnapped kind of. Ultimately, it is a kidnapped like subgenre kind of movie, but that is established and then disproved and then reproved, which I think is the strength of the movie, is that they show you something and then you kind of assume that that's right, and then that's like, oh no, that we're not kidnapping you, the world's ended.
Yeah.
And you're like, bullshit, or the character in the movie is like, bullshit, and then she's like, and then later we learn that no, both things are true. The world is having an apocalyptic event, but at the same time, this guy is also fucked up. So let's take one step back and say we don't really summarize the movie, but I feel like it's going to help in us talking about this, right?
Yes.
So you got an opening scene. There's an opening scene that's really powerfully done where she is over music. She's like packing up all of her shit, and you can tell that she's having regrets. There's a really good shot where she takes off her ring and she puts it on the table, and you see that she's wordlessly we get that she is walking away from a relationship.
Yep.
Okay. She gets in her car. The boyfriend calls. There's very vague dialogue of like, "Hey, we had a fight." The look on her face maybe it was more than just a fight. Maybe he did something really bad. He's kind of trying to be like, "Hey, no big deal. Come on.
Yep.
We love each other, right?" She gets in a car accident, and really, that's the first scene I want to talk about where there's a really well filmmaking. Is right off the bat really good filmmaking, and then. So the car gets hit, and you see her shaking around, and the car is rolling down the hill. So it's like, bah, 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 really loud, and then it cuts to Paramount Presents.
Yep.
And then rolling down the hill, like her bouncing off the fucking dashboard. A movie by, Dan Trachtenberg. And then she lands, and it's 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yep.
And the guy next to me was like, okay. And it's like, I feel like there's a weird thing that people do.
I will say the guy next to me was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great."
Oh, God, man, we should have.
It wasn't a total douche crowd.
We should have switched sides. No, but the guy next to me. But okay, so there's 2 things that goes on, right? And I think this is a kind of a tangent, but talking about movies and talking about our personal relationships with movies, there are people who I feel like when they're surprised, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And I feel like
absolutely.
There are people when they're familiar with the tropes, don't like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's another group of people who are both at the same time. And we have some friends in common who are like this, where it's like, they'll be like, oh, I knew it was going to happen. Either she was going to be kidnapped or he wasn't kidnapping her. I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen. You know that it'll go 2 ways. You know that it'll go one of these 2 ways, but you didn't know which one. That doesn't count. You know what I mean? And I feel like the guy next to me was like, this is stylish and provocative, and I don't like that.
There's definitely people like that. And the idea of being surprised, like you said, they just don't like that, and they put that against the movie that it shocked them, and then that's bad because it surprised me.
Right.
And it's weird. I never understood that.
And I also don't understand, like, something like, okay, so I was watching Step Up 2, right? And we talked about this before on the podcast, but I feel like there's a concrete thing here. So it's like, I was watching it with a friend, and our girlfriends, and the friend was like, oh, like, he's gonna fall in love with her, which he was wrong about. This was the friend character, not like the romantic interest. But of course, in a dance movie, of course, the hot chick and the hot dude are gonna hook up. You kind of, that's the genre, right? Like in a horror, horror is a big genre, but in a slasher movie, it's like, oh, everyone's gonna go up to the cabin in the woods. Something bad's gonna happen. It's kind of like, we want to know what bad thing's gonna happen. That is a foregone conclusion. It's the minutia of how you know what I mean?
And it's like, when the trope happens, they go, oh, that was dumb. It's like, well, what else would you want? You want them to go up to the cabin, have a good time, and then the movie ends?
Right.
It's like, you want to see that?
It's called a porno.
They're
great too. But you're not going to see that in the fucking multiplex.
It's
also,
the story doesn't come from everybody's plans going correctly.
If we were ever to make a porno, Kev, you and me together, I would want it. Hold on. I would want the plot to be like a slasher movie where everyone goes in the woods, but instead of anything bad happening, just like the woods are kind of creepy, but like it's pretty hot to bone outside. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just none of the bad things happen. It's like, when you think like, these guys are boning, and then like here's the killer. It's just like the other girl's just watching.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they all just drive back home. And then they pass, when they're at the gas station, they pass like the group of teenagers that are going to get killed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you guys know you have like a hook in the side of your car door? Like, what?
So yeah, they get our sweaty musk, and they're going to die.
Yeah.
So everybody should be so lucky.
Right. So then, but this tangent, I'm going to go back to, so the plot of this movie.
So enough about our hypothetical porno,
right,
starring each other.
No. We're directing this.
Okay.
No. I'm holding the boom. I'm holding the boom mic.
I thought you were saying like we're in the porno.
No. Listen. We're not gonna delve too deep into this, but there are reasons why that would never work. But no. We're directing this because we're
smart.
We're smart. We're just that's our talent.
That's all right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. No one would want to see that. No, sorry. I hate to break it to you, Kev.
I don't know.
Listen, some people have had these late life porno careers. It could be you.
It could be me.
Mostly it's women in that cougar segment. But hey, it could be you. They could be a male. You could be a silver fox, right?
I'll do it.
Yeah.
Just gray me out.
I will not, but I support you. No judgment here. So that's the end of Act 1, basically, right? Kind of a short Act 1. Act 2, I would argue, is she wakes up in this underground bunker. She doesn't know where she is. Lots of things happen here. Watch the fucking movie, but it's, she tries to escape. She tries to escape again. They say here, John Goodman, blah, 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 back and forth, murders, whatever. John Goodman kills the kid. That's where we go into Act 3 now. That's the lowest point in the movie, where he murders her friend, and now she's going to be stuck here because John Goodman is a fucking pervert and a kidnapper and a monster. Then Act 3 is her escaping and fighting aliens, and then we're done. Right? That's
correct.
So if we're just going to break down the movie, I feel like that's the generic breakdown. What's great about the movie is that it establishes that she's a smart, resourceful person, a Mary Sue to some, but not really, right? But it's like, so the first time she's in trouble, she wakes up, she's chained to this bed, and she wants to escape because, it's like, I'm locked. That's not normal. This is not a hospital, right? So she uses her IV bag to get her phone, which is on the other side of the room on the little table, and then there's no bars. But that scene is critical because it establishes that she's a resourceful person.
Yep.
And then John Goodman unlocks her, and she turns her crutch into a weapon and lights a thing on fire and puts it in the vent and kind of like stabs him with it and runs out. Again, shows that she's really resourceful. And I feel like...
And she's not totally terrified of the situation she's in.
She's appropriately scared in a way that feels realistic, right? She's not just like a Navy SEAL with boobs.
Yeah.
She's a rational woman, but she's also a resourceful rational woman, right? Where it's just like... It's like she's like, what do you want from me? And he's like, I'm going to keep you alive. It's like, not the right answer.
Yep. Wrong.
So I really like that right off the bat, we establish a strong woman character in a way that feels real, feels good, and is shown to us but not told. We see that she just figures out how to.
There's a lot of showing, not telling.
In this, and really good.
When we really talk about the themes, I got some ideas for that.
We'll get to that, and this is kind of the preamble to that. And so I mean, I think this worked for you as it worked for me. Kind of a contrast to this is the movie. It's You're Next, where she explains how she's so good at stuff, and I think that worked in that movie because it kind of crescendoed to that in the way that that movie, it's like it's like a slasher movie where everything is normal and then everything gets more and more fucked up until it's totally fucked up.
Yep.
And then there's people there to ask her like, how are you not in as much trouble as us? And she's like, oh, my dad was a survivalist. And in this, I think it's the opposite, where it starts fucked up, so there's no need to ask like, how resourceful are you? Because it's just kind of like she wanted to escape. There's no question there, right? It's like, I'm a woman, I'm trapped by two dudes, like, time for me to go, like.
Exactly. But then I think kind of the midway point when she does try to escape, and then we see the fucked up woman outside.
Yes.
Who is her face is all messed up. She has like a mark on her head. She's clearly like rotting, basically. And that establishes, okay, maybe John Goodman's not this crazy.
Right. So we start the movie off with, he's imprisoning us, he's crazy, like, he's saying the world ended, and me and you, knowing the Cloverfield movie, right, we're like, no, like, he's right about that. And it'd be interesting to see someone who had not seen the Cloverfield movie and who had seen this, because I think at that point, you would probably side with her or not know what to believe. And I feel like the movie really establishes that it knows what it's doing when that woman comes into the play, and it's like, no, let's catch everyone up, we're all on the same page, there is something wrong with the world right now,
Yep.
And she's like, and that scene was terrifyingly tense. It was emotional.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, let me in, you bitch. She starts headbutting the fucking thing. It's just like, oh man, you only touched me a little bit. You only touched me a little bit,
and you don't know what that means. It's
yeah.
Like, what do you mean just a little bit? What does a lot look like? Because you're fucked up.
Yeah, because you look sick.
And then it establishes this interesting rhythm of complacency in the life, because now they just kind of live in the bunker, and it really smartly shows a decent passage of time, because she breaks a bottle on John Goodman's head. He has a big gash. He tells her to stitch him up, and it's established that she is an aspiring fashion designer, so she knows how to sew. And then we have a little montage of just life in the bunker, and then when the story kind of kicks back in, his scar is almost healed.
Right.
So it gives you, that's a really efficient way to show just about how much time. And, having had a scar that big and had stitches, takes about
You got hit with a bottle too, Kev? In your
in my bunker. They always get out. I need to take some cues from John Goodman.
Terrible. Is that a story worth telling here? That
Yeah.
Okay.
I hit my face on a guard pole. So there you go. When I was a kid.
What's a guard pole?
Or not a guard pole. Like one of those metal barriers that like protects you from a ledge.
Oh yeah, like just a pole.
Yep.
Yeah. A guardrail pole.
A guardrail.
But
that's the word.
The pole the up and down pole. Yeah. Wow, what a tangent this was.
Yep.
Speaking of,
so yeah, when you get a scar that big, it takes 3 or 4 weeks to heal.
Yeah.
The stitches.
Also, really great scene where they're watching movies and they watch one called Cannibal Airlines.
Cannibal Airlines.
And then the poster for that, if you want to take a look, is just fucking amazing.
That's amazing.
And a lot of different ways you can go with that.
Is that an actual movie or is that okay?
I think it's.
I want it to be though.
You get the sense that it's kind of like a cannibal exploitation movie, probably like in the vein of Alive.
Yeah, or maybe almost like Airport. The airport movies, like old 70s disaster movie mixed with
a cannibal. Yeah, exactly.
Cannibal Airlines.
And they're watching it and with no irony, like they're just like, this is like, it's kind of funny because like they're all stuck in a place, Yep. I just like that a lot. So a lot of good detail work in this movie.
Totally.
And then they turn it back up when they have to reset the
air filtration
system, which is a very tense scene and very unpleasant, and it's kind of like she has to crawl in a vent, and it's a very like unpleasant.
It's one of the tightest vents that we've seen on film.
Yeah,
because vents usually are huge in movies, like
right.
even in Die Hard. It's like he's not really struggling to like get through that thing,
right?
But this one feels like claustrophobic.
Totally. And so there's the thing is, every time the movie goes down, and that's why I'm confident when I say it's a horror movie, because like that scene is not pleasant, and she's just crawling through a vent where it's like she's like, it's a dead end. And he's like, no, you have to get to that dead end and then go up. And so like you see her like struggle to like turn around, go sit up, then get her knee from the thing, and it's all really tight. And she goes into this room and resets the fucking air filtration system, and then she finds evidence that someone was in the place. Right, there's on the inside of a porthole. There's it scrawled out help, and there's some blood, and there's an earring, and it's the same earring that John Goodman's daughter had. And then you realize that the daughter was not a daughter, is a girl that went missing a couple of years ago. And there's a Polaroid of him and her, and she's kind of like, and he's like, yeah, and they're hanging out in their little bunker. So this is his like rape, molesting, prison bunker.
Yep.
And
if he was a dolphin, it'd be his rape cave. Basically.
Yeah. So, oh shit. So if you thought that he was bad, and then you thought he was good, and then now it's like, no, he was bad. And there's a fucking monster on the outside, so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Which I thought was a really interesting... they kept swerving it, and it's not like a Shyamalan-esque swerve. It's
very subtle.
It's very subtle.
Done over a few scenes. Because, you do get to a point where it's like, you know what? Life down here is not so bad. And John Goodman his character is just doing what he can in the worst situation. Like, you get that vibe of, he's a little paranoid. Yeah, he's a little crazy. But, when they're playing Life together and they're watching Cannibal Airlines and they're drinking their swamp pop, it's like, this is okay. He really is genuinely trying to protect them. And then you get this whole thing, and then you get a lot more questions about why is he doing it?
Right. And when you reverse it backwards, it's like, oh, the reason why he's so mad that this other guy is here is because he's ruining his fucking molester den. You know what I mean? Like, his kidnapping is now with another guy, and he doesn't want to share his fucking princess with another guy. You know what I mean?
I like that he has to sleep in the food.
Yeah.
Also, what's his character's name? John Gallagher Jr. plays him. So,
The character's name is Emmett.
Okay. So I like that he has to sleep in, like, the food storage area.
Right, because there's John Goodman's room, there's the prison room, right? And then there's not room for a third person down there.
Nope.
So, that was really cool.
We never see John Goodman's room, do we?
No, it's the one with the shower in it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good... I just think the movie just gets more and more tense as it goes on. It's just like every scene is tense when they want you to feel tense, and then when they want you to feel like you're having fun. Really good music choices in this movie.
Yep.
When they're having the montage, and it's like,
it's like old timey 50s music.
Yeah, and I just think it all works really well. And then when she escapes, and then she's like looking around the field in front of this guy's bunker, and it's. Then, she has to fight a fucking alien, which I'm like, yeah, that's what I came here to see.
Yep.
And in the first half, I talked about how I didn't want to wait the whole movie for her to get out. So I said that I didn't want to wait for the whole movie for her to get out. And specifically, I didn't want her to get out in the last, 2 seconds, and then it's, 10 Cloverfield Lane. But what I really didn't want was for the movie to be slow and stupid and repetitive and boring, and then we finally get out, and we've been waiting to get out the whole time. It's like I'm just sick of this shit, and that's not what the movie does. The movie, when you're inside the bunker, it's really exploring that space and selling you on the action of what's going on. And then when she gets out, it's the next thing, right? It's the next. Now here's the next fucking fucked up part: is that you escape this monster, but the world isn't any better intrinsically.
Yep.
And that's a thing that we've known this whole time, that there is threats out here. So she has to fight a gigantic spaceship that is like, the spaceship is like, it's like some sort of like mollusk, or where it's like the spaceship is the shell, and on the underneath part is like the beak and the tentacles.
It's got the mouth. It's a living thing, and that's like armor for this living flying thing.
Yeah. So this movie came out this weekend, and as of this recording, and there's a lot of criticisms going on. A lot of people talking about it. People think that is a disconnect from what was going on previously.
Well, and that's kind of a joking. That's always the plot, like the shitty plot twist is, aliens did it, you know. But in this, it totally works.
And I feel like in the midpoint of the movie, again, the scene with the woman is the crux of the movie. They don't confirm it. She doesn't say, "Hey, there are aliens out here," But she does allude to monsters being outside, and it's not a complete swerve that there's aliens here. It's like we know that something bad has happened.
Yep.
And more than just the fact that this is called Cloverfield, and there's a movie called Cloverfield with aliens. More than that, I think the movie as a work on its own, this is not a crazy disconnect. You know what I mean? I think it is the logical next step. And
Some people think, because I know the backstory is it was originally conceived as just this capture drama, basically, and they think J.J. Abrams just shoehorned the alien thing in.
Right.
But it really does flow nicely.
Okay, so
it doesn't ever feel, because if we never got that scene with the woman, then I would have issues with, okay, aliens are just here now, even if it wasn't called Cloverfield. But that scene tells you, like, there is a real threat out there, and it could be anything.
Right. And so there's so based on what you just said, because on Reddit there's someone who anonymously put out there, and this is being taken very seriously, but he said that the movie was shot and edited and finished, and then under the Paramount Insurge label, which was Paramount trying to do a kind of like a Blumhouse thing where they make like $5 million movies and then either release them theatrically, or if they don't think there's potential, just digitally. So then that closed down, though. They stopped. Paramount don't only make movies anymore, so they stopped making movies.
Yeah.
So then what this guy's saying is that there was rewrites and then reshoots, and that's what the movie that we got now. So they took the completed work, they said, how do we make it a Cloverfield movie? Wrote that, shot that, and then redid it all. And allegedly, the original explanation was that Iran had nuked a bunch of American cities and they're all ruined. And that the original movie was much more boring, and the plot line of the original movie was that the containment system can only support 2 people's life. There's like, they're putting too much stress on it by having 3 people in there. And no mention of the rapey stuff, and definitely no aliens. And I don't know.
No rape, no aliens. Count me out.
But I'm kind of with you, right? Where it's like, I don't know if that's true or not. I feel like the movie that we saw was very connected, and it seems like if they did add the rapey stuff and did add the alien stuff, that was the correct decision, because the movie that they're describing sounds very boring.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So it's like John Goodman is a survivalist, and the problem is that he didn't have enough people, and then she just leaves. Like that's not really much of a movie. And she said that the original ending was that the girl escapes, gets in a car, rolls away, and sees that the major city, which in this case was supposed to be Chicago, has been nuked or whatever. And I'm like, that's not really anything, And this has been denied by Dan Trachtenberg and J.J. Abrams on an interview on Slash Film. They say the movie evolved like a normal one did, where, it's like there was this original movie, and then they said, hey, we want to do Cloverfield sequel. So they rewrote it from that angle, and then they're saying that the difference was, a lot of the difference was that they added a lot more humor while they were shooting it, because they realized, like, this thing is just totally serious, so we have to, like, John Goodman should turn on the thing and dance. Like, that's a moment that they found, like, making it. And I think there's a kind of like a pushback on this idea that, like, you could discover things as you make it.
That is a big thing with the internet. Like, the idea that, a rewrite happened. You rewrote it, it must be terrible and something bad. It's like you organically find, if you've actually worked on a movie, you organically find certain solutions. Or something you have on the page, you get it in real life, it's just not working out, you got to redo something.
Right, and I think
that's the process.
Right.
And that's what real talented filmmakers know, is there's times you have to know when it's working, or if something's just really not translating and you got to change it up.
And I feel like there's this narrative of genius, like people that we love who are legitimately geniuses in their field, were always great, and everything they always do is good from the start. You hear about like a director or a writer complaining, oh, the studio don't understand what I want to do, and they this and they did that, and it's like, that might be true, and it might be false, and it might be that it just wasn't good enough. It's not genius on the page, right? When you make it, it'll be genius. But like, hey, we want to make a movie, it's in a basement. That's not good enough just yet. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I think there's this mythos to like Brian Johnson, right? It's like he made these weird indie movies, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and then he made, Looper. And that's his whole story, right?
Ryan Johnson.
Why is that?
You said Brian.
Yeah, sorry. Ryan Johnson.
I was like, who?
Yeah. And that's his story, right? He was a genius underground, and now he's a genius mainstream. But it's like, he made his first movie when he was like 35. Like, he's not like, what did he do with his life before then, right?
Yep.
You know, did he work, fucking, making commercials, or did he work, doing something at a studio or in the industry, and he was just like a schlep, and then on the weekends making shorts and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't like to include that part of the narrative. They're just all geniuses. They've always been geniuses, and everything they do is great. But that's not necessarily true. Like,
Absolutely not.
Everyone makes fun of the fact that Fox, didn't sold the domestic rights of Titanic off to Paramount because they were nervous because it went so over budget and stuff. And it's like, you got this director who's a fucking crazy person, and the movie's going way over budget, and it's a period love piece. It doesn't scream most profitable movie of all time.
No, it doesn't. But somehow it did.
So I think there's a lot of this argument of like, after the fact, how come no one could have known that it was good before the fact? And it's like in our limited making of things, right? You come up with an idea and you love your idea, and then you write your idea down, and you're like, ooh, holes in this. Yep. And then you rewrite it, and you're back in love with it. And then you show it to people, and it's like, it's people just miss it. They're like, what? You want to make a ghost story that's already been done? And it's like, what are you talking about? Not by us. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like it's easy to say the Terminator was always a good idea after you see it and it's awesome.
Yep.
But there's probably a time when the Terminator script was shitty.
There's a lot of work that goes into these things, and some behind the scenes stories are more high profile than others. But every single movie goes through that, where it's rewrites, different people looking at things, script doctors coming in. It's just, there's always that, and yes, that's always a sign of like, this is a failure, and that's just the process. It's not perfect,
right?
But you work towards it to make it perfect,
right?
It's just stuff evolves, and in the limited scope of the internet, that always gets. So yeah, for them to say like, this got changed in post-production or whatever, I'm like, yeah, it probably did. It probably went through a lot of changes. Big deal. Get out of your basement.
Right, and I think there's this idea that has existed for a long time, but on the internet, it really it's a sausage feeding its own self, where everyone is talking, so they think that they're all listening to each other. Where it's this idea that like people aren't thinking like people make movies. They think that studios make movies, and studios are not consist of people. They consist of just this amorphous blob of robotic, like automated things. And they, because like people refer to all of this like, oh, the studios they want to blah blah blah. It's like the things that fucking Disney wants to do and the things that Paramount want to do are very different. Disney wants to print their own money. Paramount wants to sell themselves to a Chinese company. You know what I mean? Like they're in the same business. They're not the same company. You know what I mean? Like Sony and MGM, it's like, you know what I mean? Like they're all like, Fox makes teen movies for like a tween audience that are adaptations of books. MGM remakes movies that have been successful in their library, trying to score some money.
Yep.
They're not the same. They don't have the same idea. And if you are a creative type, you go to MGM, and if you're not giving them a remake or a slam dunk kind of a thing like that, they don't want to do it.
Exactly.
Your Warner Brothers, your Foxes, maybe they'll take a risk on you. Your Lionsgates, maybe they're also doing a teen thing. Warner Brothers, they want to get their DC universe going. They want to make more Harry Potter movies. They also make like weird Ben Affleck fucking Argo and shit. You know what I mean? Like, they probably don't want to make your fucking remake to the movie that you have the rights of that no one's ever heard about. You know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't know. I feel like people forget that, people make these things. It's not this amorphous blob of a creature that, sucks in data through one of its tentacles and puts out movies through the other one.
Yep. It's not all Mulholland Drive, just one scary midget sitting in a room making every decision in Hollywood.
It's not. It's not. And also,
although that's a fun fantasy, that's for sure. Fun.
I don't know if Mulholland Drive and fun go in the same thing, but also, truth be told, I don't want to watch a movie that's just about a rapist kidnapper without aliens, right? Like Room, great movie, liked it. Would never watch that movie outside of the Oscar hype. That I know enough about myself to know that everyone's talking about Brie Larson, everyone's talking about his chances at the Oscars, everyone's talking about how he got nominated. That's what got me in that theater. I would not go to that movie on my own accord because I like robots.
I saw that movie on my own accord, though. didn't see it.
Outside
But-
before all the Oscar hype got on
Yeah.
it?
Oh, yeah.
See, but I mean that's the difference between me and you. I mean, I want to watch Conan. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch fucking. You know what I mean? And I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think those movies should
Right.
exist. I support that idea, but like, I'm not super into just. I like genre shit. That's just what I like. You know what I mean?
And yeah, it's you can as we have discussed many times in this podcast, genre can be a vessel for a lot of different things, and it's an easy vessel for easy's not the right word, but it's a way to get somebody who might not necessarily see a story about that to go see a story about whatever it is you want to do. Whereas just a straight drama, it's harder to put asses in seats, you know.
So speaking of that, Kev, what do you think the themes of this movie are?
So, the tagline of this movie is monsters come in many forms.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are 3 monsters in this movie.
3.
3. 2 literal, 1 figurative. 1 is John Goodman's character. He's a monster. It's, you know, and he's almost worse because you almost like him until you learn about how much of a monster he is.
Right.
So
And
that's
it's
scary.
it's scary in that Bill Cosby way where it's like it's someone who you think is a little bit off, but then when you get used to them, you're like, nah, he's just he's just a little bit weird, but he's fine.
Yep.
And then you realize, no, he's a monster, and because you don't want him, he could just blend in. He's a predator that can blend into the background.
Yep. Second monster is the aliens, obviously. They torch the world. They're not afraid to just eat anything, even a nice solid pickup truck. They're just there to take over the world for whatever reason. We don't know. The third figurative monster, and I think this one is the key to the whole movie, is fear. And personal fear. Because every character deals with fear. All 3 that we run into. So
Well, even the lady, the fourth one.
yeah, even the ladies.
But we'll get to your 3 first.
So you got John Goodman, who is obviously in deep throes of paranoia and has been for a long time.
So he builds a little bunker.
He builds a bunker.
His fucking rape Disneyland.
Exactly. And he's just locked in his world and nothing can change. And that's what fear can do to a person. Then you've got Emmett, who talks about he's never been outside of 40 miles of his hometown.
By design.
By design. And he just never even thought about leaving, basically. And then he finally did get his bus ticket, and then I think it's bus ticket.
Yeah, bus ticket.
But
he never did it.
But he's not even going that far. He's going to like Baton Rouge,
Right.
I think. So he's not going that far.
Right. And fear has kept him sedentary.
Fear has kept him, and he talks about all the things he could have seen, could have done, but he was just this country boy who lived in Louisiana and didn't want to go anywhere. And then we've got our main lady. What's her name?
Elizabeth Olsen. Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
Michelle.
Michelle. So we've got Michelle, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character. She mentions, it almost seems like a throwaway line, but I think it's the key to the whole thing. She says, I always run from everything. So she runs from her relationship. She wants to run away from the bunker at the first sign of everything. And, she's always said that's just been a part of her. Like, she's resourceful, but she just can't commit or be strong in any situation, And then we get to the very end of the movie. She's conquered the monster. She takes the pickup truck, or she's in the little car, starts driving, and her radio starts working. And she hears one broadcast that says, Baton Rouge is safe. And you can come here and we have shelter.
If you're injured or sick or whatever, or if you just need to get out of a bad situation, come to Baton Rouge. That's the stronghold.
Exactly. And then she tunes to another station and it says Houston
is the front.
And like the aliens are here
we're winning, but we need support. So if you have
if you can fight, if you have medical experience, like we need you. And then some would call this serendipitous. I think it works fine. She hits a road sign. Says Baton Rouge is that way, Houston that way. And she kind of sits and thinks, and then she heads to Houston. End of the movie.
Right.
So that is her arc of that's what fear can do to you, and if you conquer it, you can do so much more.
Right.
So it's really about getting out. I don't want to say getting out of your shell, but it shows fear in a lot of different ways. And I think we do live in a fearful society.
Well, I think fear is a baseline emotion, right? Like, in terms of our animal brains, right? It's like fear dictates how you live. And every day, I mean, like, you know what I mean? It's like there's when you're a kid and you have a test or when you have a job interview or something, there's like this deep anxiety and it's fear based, right? So it's like this is a threat and you feel like your emotions are predictive, right? So you're like every job interview I've ever gone to, I'm like, oh my fucking god, like this is the end of the world, right?
Yep.
But even the ones that have gone badly, it's like they're not so. It's not life and death. It's like they go badly and you're like, dude, fuck, I don't want to. Like that is not going to work out. And there's always this relief afterwards.
Yep.
But all of that is so irrational because it's not on that level of whatever. So I think we live in a fearful society, which I think is reflective of our given nature, and then also reflective of like our puritanical origins.
And but yeah, I think that's a really interesting theme that I wasn't expecting to get thrown into this. Just it's before, if we don't conquer fear, then we're all just gonna be like John Goodman, basically. John Goodman's character. I'm sure John Goodman's a lovely person.
Yes, John Goodman's character.
But yeah, we're all just gonna be these little scared, paranoid freakazoids that can't do anything, don't accomplish anything, and we're all just gonna be in our bunker with our swamp pop. And if you ever want to get something done and do it right and make a difference, fear is that first level you have to break. And for her, that's her first level breaking it. So I thought that was a really profound arc they did in. So whichever three of the screenwriters came up with that,
good on you.
Good on you. I hope it was Damien Chazelle.
I think you're right. I think and I think the movie really expertly deals with this. You know what I mean? I think there's and subsequent to that, there's also a level. John Goodman gives a speech in the beginning. He's like, "You don't build the ark after the flood starts," and he's like, "I was prepared." And the movie kind of, when this is back when he's, you're seeing him you think he's right. Like you have to, build up your protection or whatever. But then he can't function in that world, right? That world, that's not the real success because this world is dependent on all of his supplies of food and all these different things. And she is more resourceful, and that is true survival, right? Mm-hmm. He just built a little slice of civilization that he can control, and eventually it'll fail. He's like, we only have supplies enough for like a year or two. We're gonna have to go back up in a year or two. That's when you can leave, is in a year or two.
He has the air filtration system. If that shuts down, you're all dead because you get no air. If you run out of food, you're out of food. Right. So,
and she's a survivor, and we see that from the get, right? She attacks him. She makes weapons. When it comes to escaping, she makes the suit and wants to go outside and explore. It's I just think that there's a. I thought at first that the movie was being critical of people not being well enough prepared, but I think there's in tying into fear. It's not preparedness is not reacting from fear. Preparedness is being able to be faced with fear and react appropriately, right? So John Goodman gets in his little tortoise shell and hides, and she makes weapons, knows how to deal with things, fights back. You know what I mean? He wants to just run away, and she actually wants to fight back.
And this is all shown, not told, in this movie. Right. Nobody gives a big speech about fear. Nobody has this big screed about, this is this. Well, I think it's this. It's all done through the character action, and that is really great.
Right. And just a side note, it's like John Goodman. You trust him because he has a CB radio. And he's like, look, the CB radio's on. Nothing's coming through. Like there's no one left. You know what I mean? And then when she gets outside and she's listening to the AM radio or the FM radio, or whatever the emergency broadcast is on, you realize that was a trick.
Yeah. He just has a police scanner.
Oh, yeah, police
which
scanner?
only picks up certain signals.
But I mean, I think the implication from after you watch the whole thing is that he's not looking for anything.
No,
that thing is on, but it's not tuned.
That's his security blanket to be like, see, I'm right.
Right. That's him controlling those people. Because he wants to be down there no matter what. He hates the world. He's afraid of the world. It's all the government, the Martians, and this and that, and the other thing. You know what I mean? Fear rules his life, and so he's creating a scenario that justifies his fear. He's like, the air is fucked up, but he has no evidence to that. All they know is that there was a gigantic flash in the sky, and presumably they saw aliens or alien crafts or whatever. Yep. So he came and ran his thing. And then everything else that he's afraid of, he assumes is happening.
Exactly.
So I think that the movie in a very excellent way. And when we eventually watch it, you'll see, I think, a lot of things where this is him just justifying his fears, and this is him controlling them with those fears, and you know what I'm saying?
It's all about living in that bubble, and the only way you'll ever be a better person is just to get out of it.
Yes. There's also criticism going on right now about there's not enough background on Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, Michelle, you know?
We get all the background we need in that opening scene.
I agree.
It's all you need.
And it's interesting because it's like, this is a in the Cloverfield series. She's the audience surrogate. In the first movie, it was very literal, where you had a guy who
Literally
had a camera
controlling what we see.
and his name was HUD. And you know, and that was your audience surrogate, right? This character, and this character, it's much more in a filmmaking way. She is the audience surrogate. You know exactly what you need to know. And one thing I fucking love about this movie is that she is not dumb. There's times where she doesn't have all the information. There's times where she reacts out of fear or reacts out of paranoia, right? But she's not fucking stupid. And in the great tradition of great horror movies, the best characters are not dumb. They're smart.
Yep.
And she does the thing that you want. It's like, she's like, I'm escaping from this place. This man's gonna rape me in the beginning. And you're like, yes! Fucking poke him with a stick. Get out of there.
I mean, that's the normal reaction somebody strong would do.
Right.
You know,
She's
instead
not
of just cowering in fear, hoping something better happens.
When she sees the alien drops down like the weird horse creature with the elephant tusk face, she's like, time to go, and runs away. She's not like, oh, what is that? What is that? You know, she's like,
Get the fuck out.
I'm out of here. You know, and I like that. I think that I don't know. I love that. I loved her character. I was always with her character. You know what I mean? She kills this movie.
And I will say, while I did not love the character in that he's a paranoid freak, John Goodman's performance is quite brilliant.
You know, it's brilliant. You hate him.
He can do so much without raising his voice, and he's a physical presence, and like he has that like kind of softer voice, his normal speaking voice, but he can infuse it with just the right amount of menace.
Right.
And but then he can do shit like the dancing in front of the jukebox is hilarious.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a very underrated actor.
And when he kills Emmett, you know, his reaction, he's like, he admitted he was trying to harm us. You know, he wanted a weapon. Like, I had to do it. Like, you know, it was the right move to do. And you totally get from his villainous perspective why he's doing the things that he's doing. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I mean, John Goodman, absolutely brilliant.
So what do you think about the twist that he was the killer? Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I'm totally with that.
I think it was well handled.
It's the last thing that gets you off of his side, because you've almost been weaned onto living in his world.
You've been weaned onto his world. You're completely... I think this movie is masterfully manipulating you. You are with him, you are with them, and you find this out, and it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, wait, what?
Yep. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliantly done.
I think so. And do you like the ending? Where
I mean, I just talked about that's the whole theme of the movie, is that end where she drives off to Houston, to go fight instead of be safe in Baton Rouge, and it might be the first time in her life that she's had to make that decision.
And I feel like this is what makes good writing and good storytelling, right? Where it's like, in the beginning you had no idea where we were gonna go, but once we got to the end, you look back and you're like, there's no other way for this to have been done.
Of course we would have gotten.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
know. In the beginning, she says, I run away from everything. In the end, she runs into the fucking firefight. And that, I think, is just like, yes.
And it, they always say the best screenwriting is surprising yet expected.
Yes.
And that's a very hard line to toe. Mm-hmm. And I think this movie toes it really well. So, good job.
Do you think the J.J. Abrams trademark security, the commitment to secrecy, improved the enjoyment of the movie?
I really liked knowing absolutely nothing going into it. Mm-hmm. So
it's worth the secrecy.
I think it was. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to the point now where if somebody's like, oh, a new trailer for Captain America or whatever came out, I don't watch it right away.
So you haven't watched that new trailer for Captain America?
I watched the new trailer for Captain America. They said Spider-Man was in it. I couldn't resist.
And that's the thing, is that I was not going to watch it, and then everyone showed it.
That's why I figured when they said, "Oh, Spider-Man shows up," I'm like, "There's gonna be a picture. I might as well just watch."
Yeah, I saw the picture before, and I'm like, "What is this picture? What is this?"
Spider-Man have Captain America's shield?
And then, yeah, it's like, well,
then they explain.
But no, I'm with you
like,
though. I'm with you. It's like as soon as I'm down to go, what else do you need to know?
Exactly.
But that's our level of fandom, though. That our level of fandom is, hey, does it look cool? Yes, no, yes, yep. We're in, we're go.
Just tell me when it comes out, and I'll be there.
I'm not against people kind of the Ghostbusters trailer recently came out, and people were really against it. Listen, admittedly, it's a dumb trailer because it's just fleshing out just piles and piles of information.
Yep.
But I get it though, because there are groups of people who don't want to live at the movie theater. They don't go to the movie theater all the time, and they're trying to get that very wide dollar. Mm-hmm. And so they're trying to get people who don't remember Ghostbusters, or remember it but don't really remember it,
or just straight up didn't know there was a Ghostbusters movie
or
with 4 ladies coming out.
Yeah, knew that Ghostbusters existed, but I didn't know that this Ghostbusters movie existed, right? So it's a dumb trailer, but that's okay for an audience that is not as in tune as me and you. For me and you, probably a teaser would have been enough to get us to go, right?
Maybe. We'll see.
I'm saying
skeptical.
A good. But I'm saying, it's what I'm saying though, right? They say we're going to remake Ghostbusters. You're skeptical, not because it's ladies, not because it's whatever, because remaking or making a Lego sequel is a dicey proposition, right? It doesn't always work. Amityville, the new Amityville sequel that's coming out, I don't know about that shit, homie. So
a Amityville horror sequel?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that's what's going on right now, right? It's in the trend. Right. So this movie, if it had a really tight teaser, you'd be like, okay, yes or no, right? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once we're sold, we're in. But that's not for everybody.
And JJ's good at just giving you just enough little breadcrumbs to make you want to go and not really tell you much. When you go back and watch those episode 7 trailers, they tell you nothing about what actually happens in that movie. Mm-hmm. But you want to see episode 7. It makes you feel like this is why I'm a Star Wars fan. But it doesn't tell you diddly squat about the plot.
Right.
And that to me is so much more effective.
Mm-hmm.
We can have our own little movie marketing podcast, and that'd be a good time.
It's called Speaking Cinema Series Movie.
It is. But I was totally okay with, people criticize they call it the mystery box. And they criticize him all the time for it. Oh, typical JJ, not telling us anything. It's like, don't you want to go see the thing and find out what it's about? You want to get the whole plot in the trailer?
I think it goes back to what we're talking about.
That's a stupid criticism.
People look at a movie as a creation of a machine that's trying to trick them. And I think that's what a lot of this coming out is, where it's like, oh, it originally was called Valencia or The Cellar or whatever it was originally called, and they just shoehorn all this Cloverfield shit into it, and that's why the ending is so disconnected. It's like pro wrestling level of paranoia, where it's like, I'm not gonna get worked. I'm not the mark here, and it's like
nobody likes the idea that they got played,
right? And it's like, but you're not getting. If you're a fan of the medium, you only get played. There's no getting played. The movie is either enjoyable or not. It's binary, right? Like, did you like it or did you not like it? If you didn't like it, it's like, yeah, not every movie's good. It's not every, and I feel like it's a weird marketing thing where people eventually there'll be commercials that come out that's like, Cloverfield is, the best movie of the year. Kevin Mirror, Boston Globe. You know what I mean? Mr. Jibber Jabber says, watch this movie.
Yep.
And then you think, oh, it's good. But it's like, no. Some fucking dude said that. Do I know this dude? Do I like this dude? Do I value this dude's opinion?
You want to know the best trick they pull on those? ... It's not ... Although that is one where it's, the totally out of context quote, which has been used in bad reviews before.
Yes.
Famously a Peter Travers one. It's when the guy saying, like, this is the best movie of the year is, like, some jabroni at, like the local CBS Pittsburgh network.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy's like the authority on movies now all of a sudden? Okay, sure.
Tom Smith, who does sports and movies at the Sunnyvale Tribune.
At KCTX K101. It's like, it's that guy saying.
I give him 4 hats out of 5. I'm known for my crazy hats.
Yep. It's that, when that's your top pull quote, that's when you know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this movie ties into the original Cloverfield?
They kind of talk about, when he's going on one of his screeds, John Goodman's character, he talks about these kind of attacks happen in phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It's like the general destruction, then the wiping out of.
Yeah.
I think this is supposed to be like phase 2 of the attack that happens in Cloverfield.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that it's disconnected from anything that happens in Cloverfield. Because maybe they happen at the same time. You don't really know, and that's okay. Because it's its own self-contained story. You absolutely do not need to see Cloverfield to see this movie.
Yeah. It'd actually be a very interesting experience not to see Cloverfield to see this movie.
Yeah. I mean, then you have no idea what Cloverfield even means. Like, what that even ties to. So, it's cool that they can... then it really opens up. You can do a lot of different movies and put it in this universe, but then it's just an excuse to explore a lot of interesting topics.
Well, but then so usually we save our sequel pitches for the end, but I want to kind of talk about like the implication of what you just said for this, right? Because the two things that this movie has in common, Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane, is a very personal, like not like PO. Like, the first one was literally POV, but this one is just like from the POV of this one character. You know what I mean? So it's like conceptually a personal story about a much larger alien invasion kind of thing. And then if we were to believe that these movies are connected, which they said they were, it's what you just said, right? The big ass monster from Cloverfield that's the first wave of attack, and then they bring in all their ships, and that's the second wave of attack, right? To just devastate the population.
Yep.
So but they're both, what's interesting is that Cloverfield was kind of made in the style of a movie, of a genre movie at the time, which was a smaller budget, cheaperly made point of view movie,
Found footage
movie. Thank you. And this is kind of what's going on now, right? Where you make a traditionally made movie, but it's one location and it's a genre movie, so you spend less money because it's one location. And what's going on now, right? I don't think that element of it should be intrinsic to the franchise, but probably it will end up being just because that's the way we make movies, right? So if the next thing is, green screen movies that are completely green screen but cheaply made because they're green screen, it probably will be made that way just because genre movies are made that way, and this is a genre movie.
Yep.
So where do you see this franchise? Like, what do you want out of it? You know what I mean?
I think would be interesting. What does the world look like 20 years after this alien invasion? And how have we coped in the wake of a huge tragedy? I think that's an interesting drama. You could almost do something like Hal Ashby's Coming Home. Like almost a post-traumatic stress type story about the people that made it through.
I agree with you, but I want to make that movie in 20 years and make it a Lego sequel in 20 years. Bring back the Lego sequel in 20 years.
Yep.
I think you're right. I think I'm down for a personal story set in the context of this alien invasion. You know what I mean? Whatever that means. So if it's the next one's about a character that is in a resistance group and what that's like, if it's like about what is it like to be thrust into the army, what does it get for you to fight, right? That maybe that person was a pacifist, but like this is a real world war to believe in. And it's like, I don't believe in fighting wars for oil. I believe in fighting wars for freedom, and this is an actual threat to our freedom, our existence, and just and the cost of that, or something that's very personal. I don't want this to get big. I want it to stay small in a big scenario. You know what I mean?
Or what if they do it in a non-English speaking country? Like, what if you're in Paris or Egypt and you see how does it affect this part of the world?
Yeah.
And then do it all in the native language.
Well, that could be done. Have you ever seen the movie Monster?
With, what's his name's first movie? Gareth Edwards?
Yes.
Guy who did Godzilla.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that movie fits into this universe, right?
Totally.
And, I mean, literally...
You can almost tack Cloverfield onto it.
Yeah, if it was Cloverfield, if it was Monster... parentheses Cloverfield, it would fit in this universe, right? That kind of story, where that's a story about alien invasion, happened in Mexico. Like, everyone kind of lives with it. There are areas that are off limits, and it's about two people having to travel through the off limits area to get back to America. And it's just like, it's a real personal story in that context.
And the monsters don't show up till the very end.
Right. Well, you see there's hints of them everywhere. There's threats of them. I think it could work. I think you can make a Cloverfield movie every couple of years. And as long as it's in that vein, I think I would go.
Totally.
A personal story. Not keep it not too big. You know what I mean? But just if it's big, keep it about the characters. Make it a character thing.
Something like I'm gonna get real film school on you here. Krzysztof Kieslowski's Decalogue, something like that.
What is that? I'm not familiar with this.
So Kieslowski was I believe he was a Polish filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
He's really famous for the Three Colors movies, red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
That explore. Well, he did a TV thing called the Decalogue, and it was 10 films, and he directed all of them, I think. And each one is based on one of the 10 Commandments, but not in a like super literal like biblical way, in like a modern day like Norway or Paris or something like that. And every movie's connected by the idea that they're exploring similar themes in each one, but each one stands on its own. So if you could totally do that with Cloverfield, and just each movie in every 2 or 3 years, each movie fits in. Certain themes carry over, new themes are explored, and you could totally do it
Right.
through the lens of this world in a post-alien invasion world.
I'm with you here, because like you look at something like any place that has a lot of terrorism. For example, what comes to mind is like Israel, right? So like you live with this threat of violence in there's parts of Africa, inner cities in America. Right? You live with this threat of violence all the time. Anytime something can happen, mostly at night, but really anytime something can just go wrong, right? So how do you live in maybe a post-alien invasion world where the aliens have given up, but all of their monsters are still here?
Yep.
So it's like, listen, teenage Billy, it's not like I don't want you to go out drinking at night, and I'm saying like don't go out because the octopus creature, they killed that one, but they said that's out 2 in that lake, and they're dragging that lake looking for it. So don't you go out, you know what I mean? Like, there's a bigger threat of what's going on. Like, how do you be a teenager trying to live your teenage life in that world? And how do you, if you're a parent, how do you keep your, you want your kids to be a kid, but they can't be a kid because there are these bigger threats. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's things you can explore, not in literally terrorism, not in literally in drug violence, but in monsters. Which, again, is how I want to explore it, homie. It's what I want to do.
Monsters make everything better.
In the end, you like this movie? Does it work?
I do like this movie. Works really well. Definitely one of the more unique event movies to ever come out. And it's going to be interesting to hear what the general public thinks. I think people are going to have a knee-jerk reaction against the aliens, and I think that's wrong. It's not... The movie absolutely sells you on what they're doing, so I'm looking forward to reading all the defense pieces of 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah, and I'm not looking forward to all of the takedown pieces on it. You know what I mean?
That's going to be, yeah.
Because I don't necessarily think that I just don't know if that's very interesting.
You know what? Fuck think pieces. They're stupid. Even the ones I agree with. They're dumb.
He's not into it.
Don't dig it. They're all just total knee-jerk reaction.
They're saying, looking at the cinema score is 66%, and I guess people... Oh, no, sorry. B- is the cinema score, which is when they poll people coming out.
Yeah. So,
I guess that's okay. That's okay.
It's not bad. So, what's out of curiosity, what's Zootopia?
In this article I'm looking at, it doesn't say, but a $75 million weekend and a $50 million second weekend means good.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Disney's not complaining.
Yeah, Disney's. And I look forward to Zootopia Town. Get rid of Toontown, make it Zootopia Town.
Dude, I'm down for that.
Is there a name of that city in that movie?
It's Zootopia.
Oh, yeah. Let's go to Zootopia.
Let's do that.
And
That's
then,
cool.
Obviously it's Star Wars Land because...
Well, of course.
Of course. All right. And I just want to say, this is Dan Trachtenberg's first movie, and I think that it's a pretty tremendous first movie.
It really is. This is a guy who really understands film language and knows how to... He did a whole lot with not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. So it's a very impressive debut. Can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to his second movie, and I think, it's pretty great, and it's pretty cool that they made this is budding into a franchise, and it's cool that they made a personal kind of original movie loosely connected to that bigger Cloverfield universe. I think that's really cool, and if that's what this franchise is going to be, I'm down for that, you know what I mean?
And that third Star Wars anthology movie, still without a director. We don't even know what it is yet.
You want Danny TRS to do it?
He might, give him a look. Put in a good word, JJ.
Well, that's a good point. And then do you want Ryan Johnson? Brian Johnson or Ryan Johnson?
Ryan Johnson.
You want Ryan Johnson to come back and do a Cloverfield movie?
That'd be cool.
Why not, right?
Why not?
Just switch the route, tag in and tag out.
Ryan Johnson can do anything, so please.
Yeah.
Let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah, so just, Dan Trachtenberg.
But this could also
did
be
a good job.
This Cloverfield franchise could be a launching point for a lot of young directors, you know? Why not, because I think that was Matt Reeves' first movie.
Yeah.
The first, and he's gone on. He did Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and that movie's brilliant. If this launches Dan Trachtenberg, that's great. Just find those really interesting young filmmakers and see what they can do.
Let's get Josh Trank back and let's have him redeem himself with one of these.
Hey, maybe,
And
I'm all for a redemption story.
And then let's get he did House of the Devil. Who's that guy?
Ty West.
To get Ty West, this will be his first
major
one.
Yeah.
Just that's my pitch, Kev.
Give us a call, JJ. We'll do one for you.
But seriously.
We will.
This episode, written by Kev.
Me.
Music, that's you.
That's me.
Music by Jeff Russell. I'm your host, Mr. Jibber Jabber. Kev, the other host of Kev fame.
That's me.
That's it for us. Follow us on social media. Do whatever you want. Tell a friend or don't. 5 stars reviews. Those are nice. Until next time, keep the monsters roaring.
It's too bad that Swamp Pop is not real. I want to drink some Swamp